Welcome, everyone, to the first in the Seeing Through Space series of talks, and the first public event connected with the Center for Art in Wood's upcoming exhibition and community program, the Mashrabiya Project. This project, which is possible through generous support from the Pew Center for Arts and Heritage, centers on the Mashrabiya, a scalable lattice screen that can be affixed to windows or installed in interiors. It simultaneously offers protection and ventilation, as well as privacy from public view. It is an ancient device that forms the original premise for modern-day air conditioning. This form evolved over time to serve a number of purposes, including separating interior spaces according to gender and function, hospitality, and providing shade from the sun, as well as serving as a decorative element to otherwise austere building facades. Under the prohibition of representational imagery that is characterized in Islamic material culture, the Mashrabiya became a framework for artisanal and decorative skill, displaying artful geometry and elaborate perforated designs to become a defining element of Islamic visual culture and ornament. The Mashrabiya of North Africa, which are fabricated of wood and can expand and contract in response to the region's intense climate, are found in residential and religious spaces alike. Comprised of thousands of simple, individually lathe-turned components, they are assembled without glue or fasteners to create large, scalable elements and furnishings that are complex and ornate in design. They are bountiful in metaphorical evocations, particularly circulating around dualities of public and private, subject and viewer, denial and reclamation of space, and the porosity of boundaries. The Mashrabiya is an enduring symbol both of Islam's cultural heritage and of the perpetually evolving nature of religion in society. The Seeing Through Space series is one part of this project. It's a series of programs as well as an exhibition that makes use of the cultural significance and compelling decorative beauty of the Mashrabiya through works by 6 artists. Each of these artists is rooted in a part of the Islamic world, and each is woman identifying. Through this series, you'll meet each of them leading up to the opening of the exhibition in March 3rd, 2023. The first, and I hope you'll all congratulate her for her boldness for being the first, is Hoda Tawakol. Born in Egypt and raised in France and Germany by an interchanging trio of mothers, she not only navigates an in-between that percolates through her identity, but she layers this suspension into her practice. Her works are spirited, colorful, tactile, and they demonstrate the artist's facility in a range of materials to create sculptures that revel in the uncanny. They are sensual and witty, but wrapped within these vigorous creations lie deeper questions around biopower, control, and corporal manipulation. While her hand-dyed and intimately sewn textile pieces clearly signpost questions of women's labor, she also interrogates the wider yet more insidious forces, be they social, biological, or cultural, impacting the female body. Sculptural gestures of abstraction and manipulation probe gender restrictions. Superposed grids and lattices conjure sensations of confinement, concealment, repression, allusions to ancient rituals, and embodied practices fathom death and procreation. Hoda's work has been exhibited in numerous institutions and galleries in Germany, including the Schöne Kunsthalle in Frankfurt, the Weserburg Museum of Modern Art in Bremen, Religio-Westfälisches Museum für religiöse Kultur in Telgte, Kunstverein in Hamburg, Kunsthaus in Hamburg, and Produzentengalerie in Hamburg and Berlin. Internationally, she has shown her work at Sphäre Semler Gallery in Germany and Lebanon, Beton Art Space in Denmark, and at the 10th Velada Santa Lucia in Venezuela. Her work also appears in the following collections: the Salama bint Hamdan Al Nahyan Foundation in Abu Dhabi, the Progressive Art Collection in the US, Huma Kakabji Collection in Turkey and in the UK, and the Sammlungshaus in Germany, the Weserburg Museum Collection also in Germany, among many others. We will start today's talk with Hoda discussing her work and the trajectory that brought her here to the Center for Art in Wood. and then she and I will have a short conversation. Following that, she'll be open to answering questions from the audience. So while we're having our discussion, please feel free to submit your questions to the chat. Now, I'd like to hand it over to our very, very special guest, Hoda Tawakol. So, Hoda, thank you for being here.
I thank you. Wait, I'm going to get my screen. Yes, hi everybody, and thank you for inviting me, Nava, for the show, for this project, and also for this talk today. And thank you for the beautiful introduction. So I'll try to give you an overview of my work, or what is really interesting me or obsessing me, and as you said, well, I'll start with this. I'll start with my studio. This is one of the walls of my studio, which is full of boxes, and all the boxes, or nearly all of them, are full with fabric. So fabric is really the material that I love, fabric and thread and cutting it, and what I love about fabric is it's a very sensual material, because it's on your skin from the moment you're born until the whole life, and then even until you die. In most cultures, you are enveloped in fabric, so it is like a second skin, and that's why I feel a certain intimacy with fabric, and it's also a material you can transform a lot, cut it, stretch it, dye the fabric, but also repair it and sew it together, which is also some kind of a caring gesture as well. Although I use fabric, I also use other materials, and you will see this in my presentation, or also when we will talk about it later with Nava. But let's say the most obsessive one, or the most important one, is fabric. Then another point of obsession is the female body. This is a picture of my mother in the 60s, when she was in Alexandria. And as you said, Nava, I was brought up in a very feminine background. So 3 women were around, and as a kid, I was surrounded by these big, bigger in size than me, of course, female bodies, and all were quite voluptuous and round. So this is an imagery that was around me, and it plays quite a role in my work. So not only the question of shape, but it's also I'm also interested in women in general, their position in the society, and the interaction in patriarchal structures, and what happens to their bodies, their sexuality, and so on. So I will guide you. I will show you some examples. This here is from the series Nude. It's they're small dolls made of nylons, and I fill the nylons with rice, and then I tie them to bring the shape out of this nylon block full of rice. And then I, when the shape is there, I cover them with resin. So it's a little bit like it looks very soft, but in reality it's a very hard sculpture when you touch it. And so it's only the body of a woman, or what makes a woman a woman. It's so there are no legs, no face, no arms. So I really concentrate on this part of the body of a woman. And also, depending on the viewer, it will look either like an oppressed woman, or reduced to an object, or it could also be looked at as a very assertive woman through her position. So there is a certain character in the movement, or an assertive movement of the body. This is another example, but in much bigger scale. It is 3 meters long. Excuse me, I don't know in Peric, or it's twice as tall as me.
About 10 feet, almost 10 feet, 9.5 or 10 feet.
Okay. So there is also, it's made of dyed fabric that I dyed myself. So it has something very fleshy, and it has this roundness that is nearly the roundness or the feeling of skin, and it's not skin. It is, of course, it's fabric, but it has also the size is overwhelming. So an overwhelming femininity as well in all its shapes. This series is called Mummy, as in mother, but also as in mummified, the mummified corpse. And it is basically the same technique than with the nudes, where I use nylons, rice, tie the whole object to create the shape that I want to achieve, and then put resin on it. And the resin, it is like also like mummification. It is the same technique or way of preserving something, and it is an abstracted shape, but still has a certain roundness, and it varies between body parts or genitals or male, female. So there is a certain fluidity in it. And also the aspect of building a cocoon, and here in this is part more or less of the same series. On the left side there is another mummy, but in a much bigger scale, and on the right side a sarcophagus, where you have like a mirroring two bodies, also like cocoons. So it has to do, on the one hand, with motherhood and carrying life inside of the body, but also on cycles of birth and death and rebirth. So this is the richness as well of the body of a woman, but it also ends. Then I worked on another series using palm trees. So of course it has a lot to do with where I come from. As an Egyptian, the palm tree has, it's very symbolic, sometimes even maybe cliche in certain situations, but it is symbolic for the region I come from. And it is also for me, where I always lived abroad. There's a certain nostalgia when I see a palm tree. And what interests me in this type of tree, of plant, first of all, it's a very generous, life-giving tree. It has, so it gives dates, it feeds you, and it gives you shade, and it gives you wood. So so it has something very protective, and also there I related as well to motherhood. What is also fascinating about the palm tree is that you have male or female palm trees. Most of the plants, they have both genders in one, but the palm tree is either you have one that pollinates, and it's the male one, and the other one is female, and it bears the fruits. And there was even a situation, or not a situation, but a scientific discovery lately, that when there is, in palm groves, when there is there are too few male or female trees, that they switch gender sometimes, and male become female or the other way around. So all this gender fluidity also that is incorporated in this tree is also very highly interesting, plus the symbolic of the tree of life, or so it symbolizes in many religions victory, eternal life, and so on. So with the tree, or with the palm tree, I connect nature with the female body or the feminine. In this work, it is also a connection between plant and body. This is, I call it jungle very bluntly, and it is, so a jungle is something very, it's abundant, it's sensual, even erotic, it is dense. And on the other hand, so it has something extremely fascinating and beautiful. And on the other hand, when you are in a jungle, you also feel a certain threat, and you feel overwhelmed by the power of this how do you call this place, and this is what also happens in patriarchal structures, that when the feminine becomes too strong and overwhelming and fascinating, it also creates threats, and these threats and then in patriarchal structures there's always this need to control these threats and to control the feminine and to put a cover or how do you call this on a casserole? It's a boom, you close it with a lid, yeah, to keep the lid, sorry. And this is basically the same idea as the jungle. This work is called Delicious Monster, and these I'm sure you all know this plant because it's a very it grows very fast, it grows very big, so it has, that's why it's delicious and monster at the same time. It has also very sweet fruits, so that's why also the delicious. And the leaves, they are also, this plant is also called Adam's rib, as Eva has been created through Adam's rib, so she came next, second. So this is also the whole story of that the woman came as number two, and the same thing, it is beautiful, fascinating plant, and on the other hand, it has also something very scary, dominating, overwhelming, and that triggers control or need to reduce the fear. Then another important point, also in the Mashrabiya project, anyway, it's the gaze. And here, this is these are falconry hoods, or they look like falconry hoods because the real ones are that small, and the falcons, you put, as if the falconer puts it on the eyes of the falcon, and the beak is coming out of this out of the perforation, and it is used in for hunting, or for to calm down the falcon and to control him, so he is not following his instinct, hunting instinct anymore, and he is calmed down. So so this is one of it's one of the pieces the falconer uses to deal with the falcon. And so I recreated falconry hoods, but that you could wear. So it is human sized, and it's also closing the eyes. So it has to do with the interaction of the prey and the hunter, desire and control, observing and being observed. And then another piece of equipment for falconry hood, the falconry, how do you call it? Falconry hunting? No. Yeah. Is the lure. And a lure is as big as my hand, more or less, the one used really by a falconer, and they are either feathery or furry, and they are attached to a rope, and the falconer throws it and brings it back, and the falcon jumps and comes back. So it's also a way to stimulate his the hunting instincts of the bird, but controlling it as well. So and I also did some lures that are neither feathery nor furry, but more round, and you can maybe recognize some shapes like thighs or breasts, or so it has something much more physical, and maybe, yeah, mixed between feminine and masculine, maybe in some of them, and some others are much more feminine. This is another example of lures, and this is also a lure that I did for a show that was in a garden. So a sculpture park. Okay, it was during COVID, where you could only go outside. So now I'm diving now into the Mashrabiya topic in my work. And maybe it's more or less chronological what I'm going to show you, or maybe the process in my work, how I started to deal with the Mashrabiya and what came next and what came next. So to guide you through where I finished, or finished, I never finished, but the different steps of my work. And so this is Mashrabiya kind of work called Fragment, and it's made of fabric, stretch fabric, the same fabric you use for leggings, for example. And leggings, when you wear leggings, they are covering you, but they are revealing every single inch of your body, because it is so tight. So this hiding and revealing in one fabric, or this was for me an interesting point in the work, or in treating this type of material. And then I stretch the material, I stretch the fabric, and then I slash it with a cutter, and then the openings open. Yeah, it opens on its own, let's say, or it's a process that it's half controlled and not controlled, because one cut too much, and then it could be a wrong direction. So it's a very interesting process as well to do it. And through the cuts, you see the background, but it is not revealed completely. So there also, it's a mix of both, of seeing, not seeing, and it's also like ornamental injuries, if you want. So these cuttings, and it's yes, it has something of a ritual somehow, and also related to skin. So also related to the body. Then another way for me to treat or to work on a Mashrabiya idea are the cutouts, and I don't know if it's possible to understand this if you don't know the work if you see it only on the picture. I'll try to explain it. It's that I first do like a collage on my computer. Then I print it, I color the back side of the collage, and then I cut the front side of it. And then I take the cut pieces of paper and flip them out. So the background comes into the foreground, and it's also about hiding, revealing, inside, outside, foreground mixed with background. So it is a mixture. Then it turns out into one sculpture, but that is mixing both sides. Also, like also related to a Mashrabiya idea. Then these works, called, the left one is Warrior, and the right one is Hair, the hair mask. And there I switched the idea of hiding the hair, because in many Middle Eastern countries, you are supposed to hide your hair, or it is expected, or it is even forced in Iran right now. What I did is that I took the hair as the veil, or as what is remaining, and all the rest disappears, so you can only see the presence or feel the presence of a woman who disappeared. And it was also a way for me to, it is a little bit like creating a body Mashrabiya, like in Warrior, or a face Mashrabiya, like in the mask, because it has something, or these structures again that come back. And in the Warrior, you cannot see this on this picture, but the whole ribs are kind of, or this part of the body also have a very geometrical structure resembling ribs. Again, with synthetic hair, I don't know if I mentioned it, it's with synthetic hair and fixed with resin again, like also the two other works before. This is also so fixed with resin. It's a wall sculpture, and it has also something of a Mashrabiya, again using the hair as a material, which is to me very interesting because of all the issues related also to the Mashrabiya, what is happening with women, their freedom, and their bodies, their sexuality, and all these limitations that happen. Then it became more concrete, where I developed windows. The work is called shibag, which means window in Egyptian, and it's also made of synthetic hair with resin, and it is really the closest I did to a Mashrabiya with hair. Here on the left side, the same. On the right side, it is also a kind of study of Mashrabiya. Here I'm using one symbol on the right side. It's called blades. It's one symbol that I repeat, like in the Mashrabiya, actually. It's one piece of wood that is sizzled or shaped in a certain way. And I do here the same, that the one shape disappears and becomes a big ornament. So, and this shape is actually the perforation in a razor blade. So if you look at it carefully, you will recognize it straight ahead, but you don't recognize it from the beginning because it is an ornament. Then I have also this type of work where these are quite small, made of cardboard and pins, where I layer different shapes to also recreate like small Mashrabiyas, like models or drafts, if you want so. And finally, or the last picture is the Mashrabiya I did with trellis, garden trellis, and it is the trellis are ready-made that you find in garden centers. Everybody knows them, I think, and it's either you use it to have a separation in the space in the garden or to your neighbors, but it is not a wall. It is still see-through and porous. Or you can use it as well to guide the growth of plants. So it's also a kind of control of nature. And it is a Western object, ready-made. So I know it from Europe. In the States, it's also present. And I mix it, I transform it into a Mashrabiya from the Middle East. So it is, I like this combination of both cultures in one work, and this aspect of control, separation, but also inside and outside that is in this work. That's it, I think. I don't have any more charts. So if you have questions.
Thank you, Hoda. That was so great. I think we'll talk a little bit about what we've just seen and how it connects to the upcoming project here. And I'd like to start with how you approach the material of wood as an artist who works in an extremely tactile way with a lot of materials, but principally fiber. But here's we're looking at the one of the works that's going to be developed for the exhibition. Could you talk a little bit about your relationship with wood?
Sure. Well, at the University of Hamburg, where I studied art, we have many different workshops, or like small factories, metal, this, that, and I was always in the wood factory, because I love all the things you can do with wood, and I did also some other Mashrabiyas. I forgot to put them in this presentation, also made of wood, and I like the material because it has also something very lively, although it has been cut, so it's not a tree anymore, but it comes from a tree, it comes from nature. It transforms also with time. Some pieces of wood, depending how you store them, they change their shape a little bit. And then there is also this resin coming out of the wood. So it is like a secrete, or I don't know how. Yeah. And, so it's fascinating, and it smells fantastic. So it's again very sensual, very interesting material, and you have different colors and different. Some are soft, hard. So it's very fascinating to me.
Mm-hmm. And you said something right now that reminds me of a larger theme in your work. It seems like most of your work revolves around dualities, whether those dualities are constructs of gender or seduction and danger, or attraction, repulsion, and also hidden and concealed, which is a really principal focus when it comes to Mashrabiya.
Yes, true. No, it's true. A lot of well, it is also I think the Spannung in German. I don't know how you say this. Sorry, I don't know the translation, but it is the tickling part, I think. Or if you have opposites, or if you have two direction, and not only one direction, but it is interesting to go this way or this way, and probably I think the fact that I have been that I lived in two different cultures. I never lived in Egypt, but I was I grew up with in an Egyptian background, or an Egyptian family, and then I lived in France most of the time, and school and stuff. So I have both cultures in me, and this is already a duality in my biography that makes me look at things differently, because you're not in one tunnel, but you compare and you question. So yeah,
that's absolutely true. And I think that kind of structure or mental filter is lifelong, and it impacts every way you see the world. Not belonging completely in one culture or the other. You carry that with you.
Absolutely.
I'd like to talk a little bit about motherhood and its importance in your work. And I was thinking about this as you were speaking, and particularly in the nude series, which they appear to be these very, very soft, quite luscious sculpture pieces that you can they're so tactile, they beg to be squished, but they're also hard.
Right.
At the same time. So you're a mother as well.
Well, it is. I was brought up by 3 women, so 3 mothers as well. So it's not only 3 women, but they're all had took over a part of being a mother. So so I cannot speak like most of the people of the one and only mother, but I have a fragmented image of motherhood, or I had one in my childhood or in my life, and I think that's what makes or it's possible that it has an impact then on these nudes, for example, who are absolutely there and strong and assertive, but also not there. It's a cocoon somehow. It has no face. So that's why there is, maybe this is playing a role in the nude series, or in my way of, seeing motherhood and the feminine.
And then your work is very much about handwork, which has traditionally been considered a kind of a reflection of domesticity, particularly when it comes to fiber and textiles. Could you talk a little bit about how that became the leading medium for you?
It was, look, it was fabric was always present at home. I remember my grandmother used to have things sewn. You say sewn by someone, so her clothes by someone came home, and there was a sewing machine, and they were preparing all the stuff together. And so my mother had also a lot of fabric all the time, so it was always present, fabric, and I always loved it. And I remember also at the university in Hamburg, you have these moments, where you show your work to a group of other
critique.
Yeah. And someone told me, well, but this is really, you're doing woman art. But in a way, like an insult. I was a bit puzzled at the beginning, and I thank God I talked to, I was in conversation with a professor who was doing gender studies, and she said, yeah, Anne, it's perfect. And so what, it was the whole aspect of woman art because it's fabric, and it puzzled me for a day or two, this reaction, but thank God it didn't continue puzzling me. And
yeah.
Well,
I think it serves the work that you're doing and the ideas that you're communicating really well, in a way that I don't think other materials would sort of live up to that. And I think you, of all people, are able to harness that connection with women's work, and which really means, to be perfectly honest, which really means it translates into unpaid labor. But you turn it into a conceptual driver in your work.
Yes, yeah. No, it is no, the idea that it's a traditional material and a traditional gesture, it is not something negative.
Right.
You see, and especially if it has also a very caring gesture, fabric. It has something, this whole repairing and enveloping and caring for. So this is also an important aspect to me, that makes fabric and the traditional fabric so important and rich culture.
Absolutely. I'm reminded of what you said quite early on, that we are born into fabric from our first breath, and then we are also, well, in certain burial traditions, we're returned to the earth in fabric. That's quite a poignant association.
Yes, it's crazy actually, but it's so present.
Yeah, yeah. Architecture, because we can't talk about Mashrabiya without talking about architecture. And this exhibition particularly focus on the urban landscape of Cairo, past and present. Can you talk a little bit about, or think a little bit about the relationship between architecture and the feminine body? You did, yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You wanted to ask something?
No. You mentioned, a lot of your work does focus on that act of seeing and being seen, and the gaze and who controls the gaze.
Mm-hmm. Yes, so if you think about it with the idea of the Mashrabiya, it is inside is the woman's space and outside is the space of gaze, and mostly the male gaze. So this is already something that is a fact that the inside the home is the feminine side, or the space of woman. But it's also, I see it also as a cocoon, the house or the Mashrabiya as a cocoon where life is inside as well. So these two, where I also think of motherhood again, that the house envelops life and the family. So that's yeah.
And your hair series relates to this as well, because you talked about empowerment, whether that means, whether that's manifest in a decision to show your hair in a culture that where that's not permitted, or to cover it, is also, it can be a source of empowerment. And can you kind of talk about this in the
I don't think it's a source of empowerment to cover it. I think it's a source of empowerment to have the freedom to do it.
Yes.
For me, it is. I don't think it's a source of empowerment, because most of the time it is related to the male gaze. So if men wouldn't exist on Earth tomorrow like this, I'm not sure women would continue covering their hair. So that's why, for me personally, it is not empowering, but I would also never say to a grown-up woman, don't cover your hair, because it's her business.
Yeah.
And she is grown up and she can decide for herself to cover her hair. But definitely what you see in Iran today, it's amazing, and it is in the work The Warrior, this full body hair mask. It is through the hair and also through the title. It is defiance to this type of patriarchal structures, but it goes even beyond a subtle patriarchy. It is so terrifying how women are treated and beaten up and
disappeared.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I hope it will develop this rebellion to the positive.
Yeah, let's hope for that together. I want to make sure that if there are questions, that there is an opportunity to ask them to you. But before we do that, I have one last question for you, and that is that, without giving too much away, could you talk a little bit about how the ideas that you've mentioned here and shown us will be, what we can expect here in the gallery in March?
Sure. I wanted to bring my Mashrabiya ideas further. So I like, if I have the opportunity, in this case, the space is huge, the seating is very high, so I want to work on the trellis, or with the trellis again, and but have a structure in the middle of the space, hanging from the ceiling, so something floating. And my idea is that when you will move in the space, there will be different structures that appear through the movement and through the different layers. So this is one of the works that I will show, and then I will also show a lure, which will be interacting with the Mashrabiya, but also interacting with the viewer, because the people will be able to go behind the Mashrabiya, in front of the Mashrabiya, between the Mashrabiya and the lure, or look at the lure through the Mashrabiya. So, and this type of interaction, this is what what I would like to, or what I will hopefully show in March.
Well, I can say I have really learned a lot from working with you on this over the last, year. And I, as time goes on, anticipation is greater and greater, and I am just so excited to be able to show your work at the Center for Art and Wood. It's an enormous honor and privilege, and I
my honor and privilege. Thank you.
So if you have questions for Hoda, please please put them in the chat. There are a couple of comments, and I just want to make sure that you hear them because they are lovely. Whit, who I believe is still here, and Whit Lopez is a Philly-based artist who works a lot with fabric as well, and the healing of bodies. Whit mentioned your work is so lovely. Thank you, Whit. And then Carolyn said, your work shows a wonderful blend of softness, vulnerability, strength, and resilience. Which is a
nicely put.
Yeah, absolutely. So don't be shy. I'll give it a minute or two, but if there are no other questions, oh, Katie has something.
I do. Hoda, first of all, I want to say your work is amazing, and it sparks a lot of inspiration in myself personally. But I'm curious, your pieces are so inviting and so tactile that they, especially the warrior piece, they almost lend themselves to possible performance pieces. Can the warrior piece be worn?
Theoretically, yes, if you don't move. If you stay like this and I would slide it from up to down on your body, you could wear it because it's human size. The hair mask, you could also wear them, and the falconry hoods, definitely. Even the first one I did it with the newspaper to try it, because I tried to find a bigger size and test it, and my husband was wearing it. So, and in front of my parents-in-law, who were probably very worried about the development of our marriage.
And does the nose?
Sorry?
Does the nose fit right, like perfectly through the?
It fits. I did a little change in the falconry hood that the nose fits. If you do it for a bird, it has to be wider because the beak has another shape. So this is the only variation that I brought to the work, so to be able to fit a human being.
They're beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Katie. That's a good question. Maybe there is room for performance in your work. It's because they're so spatially engaged.
I'm not the performance kind of person. I'm too shy and I prefer to be in the background than performing by myself. But you never know if there is another artist who would like to perform with it, or why not? But I'm too shy.
Leave that to the professionals.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so glad that you were able to spend time with us today. I know it was some choreography, and it's been such a pleasure to to be able to focus on your work. And I can't wait for it to be here in March. And until then, we're going to keep interviewing artists who are part of this project. And the next one is November 17th, and that talk will be with Anila Kayamaga. You will definitely want to be here. So until then, thank you so much. Center for Art and Wood, Pew Center for Arts and Heritage, and all of you. We will see you soon. Be safe, be well. Thank you, Hoda. Talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.